all the people who are dehumanizing us are dehumanizing themselves. And so I am insisting on my humanity, and I'm insisting on the humanity of other people. I'm insisting on the humanity of immigrants, of people with the capacity for pregnancy, of black and brown people, of poor and working people, of trans folks, non-binary people. I'm insisting on everyone's humanity, and really trying to be as intentional as possible with the way I live my life and the language I use to never deny someone of their humanity, and push with everything I have against that to rehumanize people.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Town Hall, a Black Queer podcast with me, Bob the Drag Queen, and Peppermint, the podcast where we journey through a theme by sharing stories, movies, poetry, and art of varying depth and hilarity. And today's episode is is part two of last week's episode. Is Trans Joy.
Honey, it is. And, we have a lot to say about Trans Joy, don't we? And
Yes, we
this
do.
is the remainder, by the way, of our last episode with Laverne Cox, the amazing, the effervescent, the iconic Laverne Cox. We had only planned on one, but it's like bonus. So feel special.
But also we still have other guests as well, and I had so much fun talking to Laverne. We've had such great guests this season. All of our guests this season have been great, and also a big thanks to everyone who has been supporting us. And listen, real quick, do us a favor: go to Spotify, go to iTunes, and give us a review. Let me see exactly how many reviews we have right now, and see if we cannot double that, honey, because it really helps the algorithm a lot. So the more you all, if you think that what we're talking about is important or insightful or fun or interesting or anything, this is a time for you to we have 149 reviews, and I know we have 4.9, which is great, 4.9 stars, but I know for a fact that we can go up a little bit more and get even more. I know we can. So please take a moment to just give us a little review on Apple, on iTunes, or over on Spotify, so we can know how you feel about our podcast.
I do think it's starting to pay off, Bob, because I hear people mentioning it like more and more, even more now than even a couple of years ago when we first started the podcast. I'm hearing people like specifically mention the conversations that we have on here. We recently had an opportunity to, I wouldn't say do a live version, but we did we got hired to go and have a conversation for a company, and it was great. We people are actually listening to this podcast, obviously, and I think it's making an impact, and so we want to increase that. So maybe we'll be able to do like a live version, like you all do with Sibling Rivalry one day.
I would love that. Maybe we can bring Peppermint to Los Angeles. Maybe I'll go to New York City. Maybe we'll stop in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Who knows where we'll be? The possibilities are limitless for this remarkable podcast. And it is something that Pep and I just really, really love to do. We both feel incredibly passionate about it. So thank you all so much again for listening. Before we hear from Laverne again, let's hear from our first guest, Joe. Now, Joe is an artist by passion and also in college for human services. And Joe shares with us the joy they found through embodying their masculinity and how to find them. Defining yourselves by owning terms is the ultimate form of self-sovereignty. We stand some self-sovereignty here.
Hello, my name is Joe. I am 20 years old, and I like to say that I'm an artist by passion. So, it's not exactly a job, but I also don't want it to be a job. I'm really interested in music and textile arts and paper arts, making zines and stuff. And right now I'm in college for human services. So I'm hoping to work with nonprofits and, communities that work with specifically LGBT, BIPOC individuals. And right now I identify as being gender fluid, transmasculine, and a lesbian. I think I came into my queerness honestly pretty late because I was raised as Roman Catholic. My parents are extremely religious. So I was really, I guess the word is indoctrinated with these kind of ideals of like, I have to get a husband, I have to have kids, I have to, all of these specific life steps that I have to follow. So I was really attached to that until I'd say like high school, maybe even after I graduated. that's when I kind of started to question a lot of my feelings and just started to be confused about, you know, how I like to present and how I thought about myself. But I'd say the most pivotal moment of kind of recognizing who I am was in college. I I'm a two-time dropout. So I kind of struggled with those things. And during my first year of college, I was really isolated. I had issues with like agoraphobia, so I was really kind of locked in my head. And I also have OCD too, so just a lot of rumination and stuff. And I thought a lot about who I was and my sexuality, my gender identity. And that is when I kind of started to realize that things were not, how I thought they were. And also with the help of psilocybin, I also kind of came into who I am. But part of that process was going back into my childhood and looking at these events that I thought were normal, but kind of had, hidden, there were kind of clues into who I was. I love Disney Channel. I loved movies like High School Musical and Teen Beach movies, stuff like that. And a lot of those movies always had kind of a bad boyfriend character and stuff like that. So when I would go to sleep at night, I would imagine myself as the boyfriend treating that female character the way that they should. And, when I thought about that, I was like, like that probably meant something. And like I would play games like Movie Star Planet. I don't know if you know this. Maybe it's just, I don't know, 2000s kids might know it, but it was just kind of a role-playing game. And I would make myself a woman character for like the first 10 minutes, and then I would make a male character and amass like tens of girlfriends and treat them right. I was that good boyfriend. Masculinity for me, I do realize that the idea of things being masculine and feminine are kind of just like all a construct. So when I talk about it, it's very much like the traditional and stereotypical ways of masculinity. But for me, I get a lot of joy from clothing. I'm really into kind of fashion and finding my own style. So wearing those traditional, masculine, I don't know, button ups and stuff, heavy boots, stuff like that kind of make me feel like myself. And I'm from Alberta, so there are a lot of tradies around. So I love to kind of watch the way that they display their masculinity, just like even in the simple ways of like how they walk, like, and just how they carry themselves, how they sit. Masculinity is also just like a comfortableness and confidence in your body. I'm a pretty anxious person, so I'm very hyper aware of what my body is doing and how I look. So just finding an ease in myself also is like masculinity to me. And I guess also in lesbianism, that butch femme dynamic, fulfilling those butch roles also. Tradies, they're like men that work in the trades, like oil rigs or construction workers. Yeah, you can always spot them. They have like dirt on their clothes, paint, always wearing really heavy work boots. And I've also bought boots like that. Like I really try and emulate that just traditional, like strong, masculine identity. Yeah. I am definitely a fan of the boots subreddit. I really like to look at the different kind of boots, and I'm always like, I don't know, it's bad to take pictures of strangers, but I do like taking pictures of their shoes just to kind of see and like search up how they are. And yeah, pants, Carhartt, stuff like that, I guess I'm really into. Just really stereotypical, like masculine stuff. So I am second gen Nigerian Canadian, and yeah, from like a young age they've told us that any form of queerness is wrong. Like one of my first memories of like them kind of talking to me about that is me and my sister, we were watching like TLC, you know, those old programs with like weddings and Say Yes to the Dress and stuff like that. And there was a really beautiful like femme for femme couple. And I remember she peeped what we were watching and just kind of called us over, sat us down, and was like, "You guys do realize that these people have a disease, like it's a sickness and stuff like that." So just really, really bigoted, really harsh thinking towards it. So right now, they don't know anything about my sexuality, my gender, anything like that. And honestly, I like this is kind of part of where I feel trans joy. Just, you know, that part of my identity is so like special to me. And in them not knowing, I do kind of get a sense of power in that, like, you're not worthy enough to know this stuff about me. And even knowing that they're not going to accept me, like, there's really no point. And I'm a really big fan of this podcast. So I think in the episode about race or so, you guys had a guest named Ebony Jewel, and he talked about how coming out to people is sort of handing over a power to them to reject you and invalidate you and say, no, that's not what you are. So in me kind of holding this part of myself away from my parents, I feel like, you know, it doesn't let them have that power. And I feel, they do have some issues about the way that I present, and maybe they might be catching on in some ways, but at the end of the day, it's on my own terms, and I'm not going to let them affect the way that I view myself and, be who I am. Trans joy to me it comes in two parts. It's the realization and knowing and accepting of yourself, and then the detaching from like any kind of outside perspective. So since the process of me kind of realizing who I am to myself was so hard and like torturous, just kind of, realizing and accepting myself was a really big part of finding that happiness. And I also, because I have traumas around like men and stuff. So for a long time, I demonized masculinity. So just kind of letting go of that trauma and allowing myself to embrace those parts of myself gave me so much joy. Just knowing and accepting that this is who I am, and that, I love masculinity and I have strong ties to it, made me feel a lot of joy. And the second part, like the detaching from outside perspectives, because, I do realize that when people look at me, they probably don't see like a very masculine individual. And for a long time, that did bother me. And I felt like I started dressing for other people, started, presenting myself for other people. And especially right now, there's just like in society, there's a lot of emphasis on the image of transness and passing. I hate that word. But yeah, just learning to let go of that and realizing that I can be masculine even if I want to put a skirt on. Like, I can be masculine with like my purple hair and stuff like that. Like, just, yeah, letting go of any kind of societal and outside perspectives really helped me feel that joy. And there's also a part of letting go of parts of myself because, I do have dysphoria around, parts of my body and stuff, and I bind and things like that. And I'm trying to realize that, placing a negative connotation on parts of my body and feeling like they are invalidating me is also something that I should detach from to get a lot of joy out of. And there was another guest you guys had on the episode on Just Joy. His name was Ezra, I believe. Yes, and I love that episode because I we have so many parallels in our story. I really, really related to him. And something that he said that really resonated with me is that a body doesn't have an innate gender, it's placed on it. So just learning to detach from what was placed on my body and detach from what people see from me also just makes me feel so much joy. I guess I don't have very specific people, but I do have kind of eras in fashion that inspire me. Like this is another thing from where I'm from. There are a lot of Western vibes where I am. Um, I don't know if I should dox myself, but I'm from Calgary, so the Stampede, stuff like that. And Western wear. I love a bolo tie, like with a collared shirt or something like that. So, and I really looked into like black cowboys and stuff like that. Looking at the way that they dress and they present, that's definitely a big inspiration that I look up to. And like any influencers that follow that kind of style, their names are coming to mind, but I do really enjoy that. And also just like black male 50s wear. Like I love a suit. I love stuff like that. I am asexual, so I don't have the most experience with like a full-on relationship. I've just kind of, talked and hung out and had situationships, whatever that really means. But with that butch femme dynamic, there is also kind of controversy in that. People think that it's a bit heteronormative, but I don't think that makes any sense because a lesbian relationship is not heteronormative. So I don't think anything within it can be. But just kind of, I don't know, fulfilling those traditional roles that honestly cis men never really fulfill. So I don't know, just feeling like a protector to my partner and like I don't know, serving them in a lot of ways, just providing, I guess, and feeling like I'm not a part of the girls. Because sometimes in a lesbian relationship, like you can feel like, yeah, we're just girls here, right? But then when it turns into a butch femme thing or like a trans mask kind of thing, you feel separated from that hyper kind of feminine thing, and I get affirmed from that, being like I'm the other, I'm the boyfriend instead of yeah, just like the girlfriend. When I'm writing about myself, I always use he pronouns. And yeah, when I write about any relationships and stuff, it's very much from I don't know, from like a boyfriend or a male centered perspective. I like to, yeah, I don't really know how to explain it as much, but yeah, I put that, I basically, I write as a man. I play acoustic guitar, so maybe it's kind of folky, but if I were to get it like fully produced, maybe it would sound kind of like alt rockish, Yeah. But very, I would say very like songwriting and lyric heavy is the focus. My transness is my joy, just realizing and accepting and expressing myself in who I am gives me, the power to keep going. It's my life force, honestly. Yeah. Honestly, I got a lot of help from social media, specifically the lesbian spaces on Twitter. When I started, looking at people who used they, he pronouns, who were transmasculine and identified as lesbians, it was kind of like an aha moment, like, oh my God, like you can do that? Like that's crazy because those two parts of my identity were always clashing and always kind of confused me. So just kind of looking at other people and seeing myself in them made me feel really safe and made me feel like, wow, I do exist and I am real. And yeah, I got a lot of joy out of that and just seeing myself in other people and I guess being validated by other people's existences and their expressions. Trans joy, it starts and ends with me, and it has nothing to do with anything, any outside perspective. It's within me.
Thank you, Joe, for that remarkable. Thank you for your contributions. I am so grateful to everyone who stops by Town Hall and gives us their insight and lets us know what it's like to be a Black queer person, and to live the Black queer experience here in this world. You ever think about the fact that we are alive when we are alive? You ever like stop to think about that sometimes?
Do I think about the fact that we're alive?
When we're alive, like when we are alive. Like someone was like, if you could travel back in time, and I was like, first of all, Black people don't time travel. We don't go back. That's for damn sure. Like just the notion that if you and I were just born 200 years earlier.
I mean,
Like,
yeah, I certainly think of like, I'm glad I wasn't born at such and such a time. There's lots of times
Right?
I'm grateful that I wasn't born in. Mm-hmm.
But also, you know something really silly that I think about all the time? I am so lucky that we get to be alive during the same timeline as Mariah Carey. There was someone who lived their whole life and passed away and never heard Mariah Carey sing one note. Never got to hear Mariah Carey belt out one, I give my all to
Oh, my ears! Now I wish I was not born during it. Just kidding.
But like, we get to be alive during
I
these times.
yeah, I
you know?
mean, I think we listen. There's what's that? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Like there's lots of
Tell
I
us
think
these
if you
cities,
go back
right?
and yeah, if you go back and listen or like read literature and stories, obviously we know, especially in terms of like history, when we go back in the history books, we hear about this war or that famine and this thing that went wrong and that thing, and those things are constantly happening, right? But not to downplay them, there's always been struggle, is my point. But I think the great thing about like the joy of like being alive right now, yes, it's great to like have an iPhone or like be able to fly on the fastest jet. But I think the thing that we're like, that I'm really grateful for, and when I hear other people like talk about the joy that they have, it has to do with like you said, music, culture, other people. And those are things that have been around for hundreds of years. Now, granted, yes, I believe that they've been missing out. And I do think that the way that people have sung, the human voice has evolved in popular music in a way that, especially with the help of technology, in a way that like, you know, Mariah Carey is probably hitting notes and was hitting notes and things that people 300 years ago might not have ever heard. But
Or even considered.
But I do think that like there was a version of that back then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but we still get to listen to that. Like even though I was not alive in Diana Ross's heyday, I still get to listen to
Mhm.
Diana Ross's music, and I get to listen to Mariah Carey too.
But
What a
you don't
treat.
get but you don't get to sit in the front row of Diana Ross's Central Park concert while she's literally drenched in rain, and what it looks like to look in her eyes as she's singing and saying, "I don't care, let's just stay in the rain." And just like I don't really know what it's like to like hear a symphony orchestra. I mean, I have, but like, you know, play back in the time of like, you know, all the classical. I don't know. I just think that there's probably there has to have been something great about being live in the
I
past.
think
I would
this
like
is
to
telling
think
me that
so.
we
I
need
hope
to do an
so.
episode about music. I think I'm hearing that we need to do an episode about music. Speaking
I
of music,
agree.
speaking of music, our next guest is not just an actor, not just an activist, not just
Can I
an
intro her?
amazing intro. I just wanted to point out that she also does music.
And hitting high notes. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll point it out. Well, you go ahead and say it, and then I'll intro her.
Well, I was going to say she's also a musician. That was all I was going to say. She's also a musician.
Speaking of music, our next guest also hits high notes. She is a classically trained opera singer, which some people may not know about her. And she doesn't talk so much about this in our recent episode, but she talks so much about trans joy and what the times that we are in right now. And we had such a robust conversation that we had to extend. And so here we are giving you part two. This is Laverne Cox.
I am done like beating my head against a wall at this point because it just feels futile. And I feel like right now we need to be concerned with survival strategies. I just, there's no, I mean, it's not just with, trans folks. It's just with every issue that the truth does not matter. That's where we are now. And so we have to be an acceptance of that. And for every trans person out there, for every LGBTQ plus person out there, all our rights are in jeopardy. I think we have to figure out like how we proceed. And we have models. Our identities have been criminalized in the not so recent past. Our existence has been criminalized. It was illegal to be trans, right? To dress in a gender that was, you weren't assigned at birth, you would be arrested. Same-sex dancing, sodomy laws, all these things were illegal. And so it's not that long ago, but yet we found ways to survive. We found ways to have community. We found ways to transition. We found ways to get access to care. And these are the things that we must do in this moment. We have to find ways to survive. And that's really where I'm at. And I'm not, I mean, I just care about my people right now and us and our well-being and our survival. That's really where I'm at. And us getting resources, us being there for each other. And we have beautiful models that mutual aid, making sure our documents are all in alignment, our name changes, our gender markers, our medications, etc.
Yes, to celebrate, I just took all my hormones just now while we were talking. That reminded me, and I just did my hormones at this moment.
A year's worth of hormones all at once, just in case they
a year. Just do them all.
I'm about to do my order. I'm about to place the order for just
do
back
the Christmas order.
Get my stock ready, girl.
Fill that stocking stuffer. Talk about stocking
Get my
stuffer.
estrogen together. It's so funny. Like I was in LA. No, the funny thing is I was in LA and I called in. I had my doctor call in my prescription for my estrogen to my pharmacy, and I got back and like this is how bougie I am. My assistant usually handles my prescriptions and whatever, and like she was out of town on vacation, and so it was 2 weeks of me not having my estrogen, and like 2 nights ago I was like, I'm really hot. It took 2 weeks and I was having hot flashes. So I was like hot flashes where I'm like I'm really hot sweating, and then like I get for like 20 minutes and I get really cold and chilly.
Girl, is that why that air conditioner was on so damn high?
Yes,
That's why
that was over a few days ago. I didn't realize I was having hot flashes. So I need to.
I was like, it's a little cold.
And it's serious. The hot flashes are like not cute.
Go ahead, Bob. I had a question, but go ahead. Go.
I've also heard, by the way, a lot of people, because a lot of, obviously, President-elect Donald Trump has recently spoken out very negatively and harmfully and violently, I would even say, against trans people and about trying to ban transgender ideology at any age. And I saw online, I don't know how true this is, talk to your doctor. They're saying that a lot of people who use, hormone therapy, are getting their prescription changed. So like, if you're on testosterone, they'll change to like low testosterone levels as opposed to gender affirming care, just in case anything does happen. That way you will still be able to get your hormones if you need them. I mean, I don't know how effective that is, or
I think that is about having a conversation with your doctor in terms of because over the years there's been, it's been 1998. So how many years is that? 26 years of me.
Whatever. Yeah, long time.
25. Yeah, 20. Over 20 years of being on hormones. And so the different insurance has covered it in different, like at one point it needed to, when my gender markers all changed, then they were trying to charge me for the estrogen when it was female. It got to be this really weird thing pre-Obamacare where I had to change, I think I had to make my gender marker male so they would, I forget. So there's different, I don't. It was some kind of confusion around like I needed to switch my gender marker so my insurance would cover my hormones, and I've had to
Yeah.
do that a few
Yeah.
different times over the years, and I forget which way it was because it's just been so long, and it's more important. Not
It's
this is
probably every
important, but
single way
like there's so
because
many things to
different
think about.
insurances work differently. Different insurances, different doctors, different states obviously work differently. But you are right. Like there are some insurances that will cover it if it says you are. Um, there's not really a way to say that you're transgender because they don't have it.
Gender
So they
dysphoric.
basically
You're
say
just
you have
suffering
dysphoria
from
and you were
gender
assigned male at
dysphoria. Yeah.
birth and you're using estrogen, then they'll approve it. But then the minute any of that changes, it can make it more difficult.
Well, this is pre Obamacare though, right? Because
Hmm.
part of what Obamacare did was ban discrimination in healthcare on the basis of gender identity and sexual orientation. So
Hmm.
there was a time for me. I remember there was a time when you needed to like if you're female and then you're getting estrogen, it could be like HRT, like even at a certain age, it gets really tricky. But all of that's part of what the Trump administration wants to get rid of. They want to make it legal to discriminate against trans people in healthcare, in
Right.
employment, in housing. These are the things. So right, so then a doctor can say, I don't have to treat you. An insurance company can say, we don't have to cover you for hormones, for surgery. Housing, when if you're trying to get an apartment, you can like legally they can just be like, we're
Yeah.
not doing
And
this.
the
And then by also making the law
transgender
saying that
out
we're
of
making
the
that we're making biological sex is assigned at birth, is based
and you
ultimately
can't
based on
it can't be
genitalia, and it's
changed.
only
Yeah.
man and woman. It's only man and woman, and it cannot be changed. And we're also in Project 2025. They want to get rid of the words gender ideology, gender equality, gender equity, diversity, equity, inclusion, abortion rights. They want to get rid of all these words in every piece of legislation. So then it's about they want to use the word sex, meaning sex assigned at birth, and biological sex. Fun fact, the phrase biological sex did not exist as a term of law until 2016 in the HB2 North Carolina case. Chase Strangio told me that, and I went and read the brief. Biological sex did not come up as a term in law until 2016 when it was used to discriminate against trans people.
That's scary.
Fun
That's
fact.
scary.
So that's
the
all allowed.
scariest
Very fun fact.
fact I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, it's so fun. I want to get back to the joy because this episode is about trans joy, and
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's. I mean, I laugh right now. I'm laughing at it because I'm just like we're gonna be okay in this moment. I think like it's preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, and reminding myself that in this moment I'm safe. Like I think we have a lot of trauma in our community, right? A lot of shame, a lot of trauma, and this moment. What is the most disturbing thing for me is I've got I won't cry. I've gotten DMs from parents who have trans kids who are terrified. I've gotten messages from friends who have trans kids who are suicidal, and the Trevor Project said that the calls to their suicide hotline have like
700%.
quadrupled. 700% since the election. So
700%?
that is what scares me. Well, they ran a campaign like immigration and trans people was the Republican platform. Like that
Well, the
trans
very
people shouldn't
last
exist.
swath of ads were only trans focused in the battleground states. So in the 7 battleground
$100
states,
million.
they spent-
$100 million
they spent
in
millions and millions of
ad
dollars,
spends
on
stigmatizing trans
anti-trans
people.
ads, and they were only anti-trans. They weren't even like general. They were just like trans is this.
So and that
Yeah.
also so that not only is there are policy implications for that, and I believe every word that they say in Project 2025, but then it also emboldens people to be more discriminatory, to bully, to harass, and keeping ourselves safe is crucial. Finding like community and being like making sure that our schools are safe. If there's a teacher who's safe, like hopefully some kind of protections in schools for the kids. I think if you can live stealth, there's a friend of mine who has a 16-year-old daughter who's trans, and she's stealth at her high school. She was able to get gender affirming care to block the puberty that she was assigned at birth, and so she's stealth, and she's assumed cis, and I'm just like, don't disclose. Stay
Oh,
stealth
yeah.
if you can, like just to survive, just
I
for now,
think
just for the
that-
next 4 years. Do what you can to survive.
Well,
Whatever you gotta do to
what you can
survive
to survive,
this.
100%. But the I think, I mean, yes, and like, oh my gosh, because one of the things that scares me is that, like, with lack of I think for a lot of people, for myself, the thing that got me through the personal struggles, which people will face adversity in their individual lives, but then also societally with all these attacks on our community, the thing that gets me through is community with others. And
Yeah.
it just really breaks my
Yeah.
heart that we could lose access to that by going stealth, and then suddenly you are an individual and a lot easier to sort of attack and pick off, and that.
I think for the trans folks who may need to live stealth, I think getting that trusted, trans community who will keep your tea, not disclose your tea. Trans family is everything. Honestly, it's really, as we know, Pep, like it has been life-saving for me. It's been life-affirming for me, having people who reflect my experience, know and love me for who I am. Community is super important, and not feeling isolated. And we really aren't alone, and we just have to, it can feel that way. So being able to find ways to reach out online, any way you can, to like just have someone hear your story and meet you with empathy and reflect back the beauty and the wonder that you are to you, that is really important. And if you don't have that person, let me be that person now to tell you how beautiful, how wondrous, how amazing you are, and that you have a right to be here, and you're here for a reason. This too shall pass. And if you don't even have that community, there is something that can get you through. There's something that you love that you can focus on. On election night, I turned off the election coverage and I watched Daredevil, and I've been watching my Marvel Defenders. I've been playing dress up. Whatever you can do, go leave this. If it's this world sucks, maybe go into a little bit of a fantasy to survive. Go play dress up, watch a TV show, listen to music, go into whatever brings you joy and lifts you up. Lean into that. We really are what we focus on. And all these things might be happening, but as all of it happens, even at my lowest, I was talking to my brother about this morning, even like when I was broke, living in a 315 square foot apartment, I was in therapy, I was finding a way to find gratitude and joy in my life, to love myself, to get to a place of being healthy and letting go of the pain and the trauma of the past, letting go of the shame. I was doing my work. And I was doing it in a teeny tiny apartment, broke. And you can do that work, and you can find joy, you can find community, you can find, and that is there as well. What else is true is the question I would always ask people at the end of my podcast, Laverne Cox Show. What else is true? All these horrible, awful things are happening and being said about trans people, and there are policies that are affecting our lives in negative, horrible, awful ways, but there are other things that are true. There are parents who support their kids. There's resources. There's love. There's just, there's a new Lady Gaga song.
That reminds me of when you mentioned a few minutes ago, you mentioned being anointed, and it does remind me. And then you just talked about dressing up and living in the fantasy, with superpowers and sort of escapism to survive. And one of the things I think is, yes, once we get past surviving, great, because when we are in our mojo, when we are in our groove, and when we're not just like only looking only to survive, which we have to survive to get to the next step. But once we are to that next step, whatever, whenever, and maybe that next step can also be during a moment in time when we're not being supported publicly, or when there's a president that we don't like and a government, whatever. When we are able to live in our peace, it reminds me of a quote Bob and I, during the pandemic, had the chance to interview the wonderful Dr. Angela Davis for not really our podcast, but it feels like it was a precursor to this for a Black Queer Town Hall event, and that you also participated in. And one of the quotes that Dr. Angela, or one of the things she says that always rings in my mind when hearing something like this, is that trans people are showing us a way of living intersectionally, sort of balancing all these things. And we are in our power, trans and queer people for sure, Black queer people for definitely are showing people how to live in a very intersectional way that allows us to observe, utilize, and also even break the rules of gender and the binary rules of gender in society. I'm adding
And
on
that's why
to
they're
that.
so
That's not a
scared of
quote,
us.
but yeah.
That's why they're so
Mhm.
scared of us too. I mean, it's no accident that anti-trans laws are happening at the same time that abortion restrictions are happening, that they're trying to introduce laws to ban no-fault divorce. Can you
That's
gag?
wild.
They want to ban no-fault divorce, meaning that like women won't be able to leave their husbands. It's really all connected. It's all connected, and it's connected in like a systemic way. And people, the left elitists, whatever. But the Bell Hooks, I always have to bring her in. The jargonistic phrase that she coined, imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. I add to that cisnormative, heteronormative, imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. That jargon is so. That phrase is so important to point to the intersectionality of like the ways in which oppression works and operates in our lives, the ways in which systems of power operate in our lives. And the most important thing for me with this, I mean, I read my first Bell Hooks book over 30 years ago, and having an understanding, but it also helps me with my mental health. The mental health piece for me is like these systems are always operating. Having an understanding of the history of the United States, the imperial history, the capitalist history, that these things are working together, that imperialism and capitalism are working with patriarchy, right? Like, and they're also working with transphobia and homophobia, and capitalism is the big thing, and like imperialism and conquering. And so having an understanding of how all these systems are working and have always worked in the United States, and really worked last week when people were voting, right? But just knowing we can get angry and frustrated with that, or we can be like, okay, this is the reality. I can fight against that reality, or I can accept the reality. I mean, I think like the acceptance piece is for our mental health. The acceptance is like, at least within myself, because I could feel oppressed, right? It's like I have a choice. I could feel victimized or oppressed by this, and there is a reality that like my identity could be made illegal, very soon in this country. That's real.
Mhm.
However, right now in this moment, I am not a victim. And even then, I refuse to be a victim. And so then, like, it's like, how do we take control over our lives in the most oppressive of situations? And we have models for that. And how do we find joy in the most oppressive of situations, right? Slaves found a song to sing. They found a way to, like, look into something that was bigger than them. Because there is something. So it's like we have to draw from every resource, from the ancestors, from the transcestors that's out there in this moment. And that's really what I'm all about right now. It's like that there is joy out there. There is an opportunity out there waiting for you to just step into the joy. It's there, but we have to choose it. And last week, Mark Malkin interviewed me, and he asked me, what would you say to a young trans person who wanted to come to Hollywood in this environment now, when they really aren't buying trans shows, when like there's not a lot of trans characters on TV? There's a regression. And I would say, if you can be stealth, be stealth. But then I would also say, if that's not an option for you, don't ever give up on your dreams. I would say to them, when I was working at Lucky Chang's, Bob, I remember saying to Deandra before we moved to Times Square, I'd done an independent film and I'd done a scene. I was like, oh my God, this is my Oscar scene. This scene is like, and Deandra was looking at me like, delusional, Deandra. She was like, yeah, girl, yeah, yeah. I'm like, oh, girl, she's crazy. And people thought I was crazy. Oh, the hair. People thought I was crazy, like thinking I could have a mainstream career as an actor. And in 2011, a Black trans woman thinking that she could win an Oscar, that she could have a mainstream career as an actor, delusional. This girl is delusional. She's crazy. But lo and behold, it has happened.
That too.
It has happened. I have an Emmy. I have 2 SAG Awards. I haven't gotten an Oscar nomination yet. So it just tells me that anything is possible, and we cannot. There was no tipping point. There was no. I had people who came before me who inspired me. Shout out to Candace Kane. Shout out to Alexandra Billing. Shout out to Jasmine, Nicola Creighton. But there wasn't a model for the kind of career that I've been able to enjoy. Hosting red carpets, going on late night talk shows, just the acting and non-trans roles, the wonderful career I've been able to enjoy over the past decade. So I say that never give up on your dreams, and anything is possible. And leaning into our own humanity and refusing to dehumanize other people, even as they dehumanize us. When I interviewed Dr. Joy DeGruy, who coined the term post-traumatic slave syndrome on my podcast, she noted that when slave owners dehumanized slaves, they were also dehumanizing themselves. And so all the people who are dehumanizing us are dehumanizing themselves. And so I am insisting on my humanity, and I'm insisting on the humanity of other people. I'm insisting on the humanity of immigrants, of people with the capacity for pregnancy, of Black and brown people, of poor and working people, of trans folks, non-binary people. I'm insisting on everyone's humanity and really trying to be as intentional as possible with the way I live my life and the language I use to never deny someone of their humanity, and push with everything I have against that to rehumanize people. And that doesn't track in the algorithm, right? That's not those kinds of nuances, and talking about love is not the thing that, it's not clickbait, but that is the way I need to live my life for my own sanity. And I think right now, finding in prioritizing mental health and our own sanity is one of the most crucial things that we can do right now.
So can I ask you a question
queer
then
and trans
to
folks.
piggyback off what you said?
Amen. Yeah.
In terms of finding joy, because we do have all this stuff going on, but what else is true, specifically in terms of joy for you right now? What is joy? What is trans joy for Laverne Cox?
Mm. Well, a few nights ago, I had my girlfriends. I got to host a group of my girlfriends that included Miss Peppermint in my apartment, and we ate food, we kiki, we cackled about boys, we did talk a little politics, and then I pulled out a new Mugler coat that is a recent acquisition from fall winter 2001, and the girls wanted to try it on, and so we started making videos flipping our hair in slow motion because it's a Les Fauve, it's Mugler's the Beast collection, and it's this big faux fur collar, it's this big faux fur hood. Les Fauve, Fauves is the name of the collection, but it's fall winter 2001, and there is a beautiful leopard coat with this faux fur hood and faux fur cuffs, and it's just fabulous. And the girls we were all doing videos flipping our hair in slow-mo in this coat, and we were kikiing and cackling, and it was it was so much fun. It was so ridiculous. it was so ridiculous, and it was so stupid, and it was everything. It was absolutely everything. my girls are that I do this by myself. I put on like, like right now it's Daredevil. I'll put on music. A lot of times it's Beyonce, and I'll do Runway in my apartment and just like prance and dance around for myself. Like just reaching out to friends and having just getting a laugh. There's so many things that are just ridiculous and fun and funny in the world. Like there's just stupid memes. There was this ridiculous thing that I saw on Instagram today that I just was cackling. And so I'm looking for the laughter. I'm looking for the ridiculous. Like there's so much is so stupid and ridiculous about all this. And so I'm just like finding the laughter in it, right?
I love to laugh.
Yeah, it really is. That is the thing right now that feels crucial, like finding ways to be able to laugh at all this ridiculousness because it's so ridiculous. I mean, like, I guess the one thing I can say about Trump is like, he is hilarious. I mean, I can't. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets. That shit is funny. That shit is really,
The memes
really
have
funny.
been pretty
And I shouldn't. And hold on, he's like, I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't say it. But Arnold Palmer. He would be. They would shower with him, and they would walk out, and they would be like, "It was impressive." I shouldn't say it, but it was impressive. They came out and they showered with him, and it's a big dick. It's a really, really big. He was at a political rally, waxing,
Poetically.
like going on poetically about how big Arnold
I
Palmer's
thought
cock
it was Sister Soldier for a second. I was like, is this a Sister Soldier book?
That shit is ridiculous and it's hilarious. And that's the problem with Trump, honestly, is that he's hilarious. This is part of why he's
an entertainer.
He is an entertainer. That is so ridiculous. Even like the 38 minutes of the playlist.
Oh, the dancing.
Like when he just had his playlist and he danced Ave Maria and all the little, all that. It's like, what is going on? It is so absurd. It's the absurdity of it is like, we have to kind of just, if we can pull back at the absurdity of all of it and just kind of like, obviously people's rights are being taken away. The planet's probably going to be destroyed. It's just like, there's only, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom of the difference. Girl, we've done what we can, the politicians just haven't prioritized it. Big business, corporations have won, girl. So it is what it is.
You're absolutely
so
right.
It's like, not to I guess it's like push back. Girl, it's like the corporations have taken over. The planet is burning. We may be underwater. So, girl, like, get your life.
Earth is over party.
Go and feel it.
Earth is over party.
Renaissance.
It's a mess. It's a mess. Feel your fantasy. Like the world is a mess. Get your life, girl, because we might not be here much longer.
What did Trump say the other day?
Not
that blew my
irresponsibly.
mind? His mic wasn't working. He goes, I cannot believe he said this out loud. He said, I'm blowing out my left arm, I'm blowing out my right arm, and damn it, I'm blowing out my damn throat too. I was like, girl, same. Me at the circuit party, like literally been there.
And then he started miming. Then he started miming. He was miming, doing giving, jerking off, and then filleting the microphone. It was
I think he's been to a drag show.
And that was the closing. That was literally
That was the
like
closing, yeah.
last week of the election.
It was a drag
That was his
show.
closing message to the American public. It was like, it was giving head, miming giving head. That was his closing message to the American people.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really wild. And so
Beyond.
Can you tell us?
that's true.
Can you?
It's true, and and that's what America chose. And I think the reality for me, I was so calm the day after, and I've mostly been calm in this week since he won. So it's just like, okay, this is what they chose. He told you we know who he is, and that's what the majority of Americans, like right now, 3 million more people, that's what they voted for. So how do we proceed accordingly, right? Instead of fighting against, the white supremacists, misogynistic, all the things that they've shown who they are. This is what it is, So it's like, this is what it is. This is what it's always really been. I mean, like, this is what, black people, I love being black. Black folks have been all the post-election, autopsies of what happened and why it happened. Mostly black folks have been the ones saying, like, racism won out. This is a racist country. This is a misogynist country. This is a transphobic country. It's always been that. It always will be. And that's what and there's so many white folks who just it's the economy. The Democrats need a better message. I'm sorry. I'm so, and that two things can be true at the same time. The Democrats maybe can message better or have better whatever, but this is what the majority of Americans voted for, and they knew what it was, and that's what they chose.
Given that American politics and the systems that American politics revolves around, the legal system, the criminal justice system,
the criminal system.
And corporate, policy,
the corporate duopoly, the corporate capture, all of that institution.
Yeah. I mean, America became a global entity during chattel slavery with its corporations that were importing bodies and exporting the work of those bodies in the form of tobacco or cotton and all that stuff. And so since that's what it's always been, and now many of those corporations literally own and buy and sell all of the news organizations that are discussing these, what the real truth is behind things. We can't expect them to talk about anything more. They're not going to pull back the curtain and be like, this is the real problem. They're getting paid.
The corporations who are paying on cable news, the corporations are paying for the advertising. So they're not going to say, oh, the corporate they can't say it.
If I was a corporation and I owned a news you best believe I would walk through there in the morning after that election and be like, y'all better not even mention my name as being a problem that I paid all these politicians. No, I'm going to be like, y'all need to keep it up and talk about the splinters.
And the reality for me and for all of us, I think for the most part, most of us are working for these corporations. So I must tread very carefully. We must tread very carefully. We are workers. The strike taught us that we're gig workers, honey. So I don't own a news network. I don't own a streamer so I'm not a boss. I'm a worker, at Boss Energy. Yes,
I mean, the
honey.
truth is this.
But she has Boss Energy. Yes. But girl, I'm a worker. So we have to be very careful. And an anti-corporate message actually doesn't work on these platforms either, because these platforms are corporations. Speaking of what else is true and what brings you joy, the earrings with their clip-ons, they were heard in my ears. But look at this Mugler earring, circa 1992, collaboration with Jean Xavier Duarte.
It's giving dark crystal, darling.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's giving dark crystal.
Isn't that beautiful? And beauty. I love beauty and art and music.
What were you going to say, Bob?
I was going to say, given where America is right now, this season of America is not a great season. I think that if Tyler Perry, Shonda Rhimes, and Ryan Murphy got together, they couldn't write something this ridiculous.
Okay.
If they were like, let's write the craziest season of America ever, what they would have come up with wouldn't be as crazy as was. In fact, I feel like if I wrote this as a movie 20 years ago,
people would be like, "This is ridiculous." Someone would have said,
"You got to make it believable. You got to make it believable."
The tea is that even though that's true, and I agree with you, bitch, he hasn't even taken office yet.
Well, the gag is, there's so many gags. 34 criminal. He's a felon. He's a convicted felon. 34 felony counts. He is criminally a fraudster in the state of New York. Most recently with his corporation as a fraud, and he owes $500 million. But his charity was also deemed fraudulent by the state of New York and was closed down. Trump University was deemed fraudulent. In 2017, he had to pay $25 million to all the people he defrauded with Trump University during the lame duck session while he was president-elect. He paid $25 million to all the people he defrauded in 2016 before he took office in 2017. He's a criminal. He's a crook. He's a rapist. He's a civilly liable sexual assaulter. E. Jean Carroll's case. There are several people. It's wild. It is wild. Like, this is the first. He is a convicted felon who will be the next president of the United States. And because he's won, all of those charges go away.
That's not.
Isn't that?
It's because
isn't
he
that-
is a 70-something-year-old white man that all of those charges have gone away, and that he's able to do those things even if they hadn't gone away. You know what I mean? Because you and I, folks like us, we get treated as if we are those criminals, even if we're not. Followed around the store, not trusted, checked on every level. And so, you know,
Knock on wood. I've never been arrested. Knock on wood, and not.
I
You know,
can't knock
people
on
get
the
arrested
wood
for all
here.
sorts of
I'm glad
things.
you ladies have never been arrested.
People get arrested for all sorts of things. So I'm not like, you know.
I may have been
Yeah, people get
arrested,
arrested for a
a
lot
time
of
or two
things.
in my life.
it's not
I wish
so much
I could
about
say
the
that,
arrest,
y'all.
but you know, like it's fair to say there's a pattern of criminal activity.
No, they can't, girl. They can't even let
The Apprentice movie is actually really
Trump.
good.
Listen, they tried to act like the fact that Kamala Harris was drinking a glass of wine while her children played games was crazy. There's a picture of Kamala Harris after she lost the election.
After the
There was
election.
there was a glass of Chardonnay behind her, and her stepkids are playing Connect Four or something. I don't know. And they were like, "Who drinks wine?" Y'all voted in a man found liable for sexual assault. And the only reason it wasn't criminal is because the statute of limitations were off because in New York there's a statute of limitations on sexual assault. That is the only reason. And y'all are like, not her drinking wine with kids in the. It's wine. Y'all like she was ripping the bong and doing keg stands.
She might as well have been. She might as well have been selling crack
It's
to
a
those
different-
kids.
It's a different bar with Trump, and Trump is singular. Like, there's no other Republican who could get away with what he did, what he does, and what he says. And I think that's why people, because if like that Hinchcliffe comedian who
Tony
said all
Hinchcliffe.
all the stuff at the
Rally.
rally at MSG, he like. People gagged because it wasn't Trump. You know, I think like because Trump says stuff like that all the time, and people don't gag, but like people were gagging because someone else said it. Like, it's like he gets away with things that other people can't get away with, even within his party, even
Mark
his
Robinson
supporters,
thought he was
even
going
at
to
his
Mark
rally.
Robinson thought he was going to the lieutenant governor Mark Robinson. He was like, I can do it. I can have a couple felony charges.
North Carolina
They said-
girl,
they said,
yes,
"Sit your
honey.
black ass down. You ain't Donald Trump.
Oh, is that
Sit your black ass."
the black Nazi?
Yep.
The black Nazi girl, Black Africa. What is it? NudeAfrica.com girl. That was a key.
Said Trump can do it.
That was.
He said Trump could do it. It said, hey, that is Donald Trump. Sit your black ass. You must have forgot what party you was in. The hell wrong with you?
Girl, she lost hard. And Mark Robinson I mean, the ridiculous, that was a kid.
I'm telling you.
Was that not a
I'm
kid?
telling you, this is crazier than the show Scandal. Like, I'm telling you, if Scandal would have gone this way, they would have literally been like, please make it believable. No one would believe this. It's too unbelievable.
And they knew, and even when he became attorney, lieutenant governor, they knew about the Nude Africa stuff. They knew about the porn store stuff. He has porn debt, girl, because he didn't pay the porn store people
Ain't that
back in the day.
expensive.
He used to go to the porn store five nights a week. He would get the bootlegs, but the guy made a song and said he used to come to the store and he owes me like money for the porn he bought from me. He didn't pay me, so I don't know how much it is, but he hasn't paid his porn bill, girl. You can't really make it out.
Crazy.
Who would write
porn
this?
bill is crazy.
The porn debt, girl. She has porn debt, honey.
Listen, I
She's
pay
that
for
much
my
of a.
porn, by the way.
Speaking of
Support
internet-
sex workers. I pay for my porn.
She's such a gooner, to use internet language into misgender Mark Robinson. She's such a gooner, the internet lingo. She has porn debt, honey. She goons so
Honey.
much, honey. Miss Robinson, honey. Mrs. Robinson, honey. Goons so
Oh,
much that she has
you,
porn
Mrs.
debt.
Robinson. Okay, now this is probably literally an example of trans joy that we're having up in this room right now. I'm really happy that you were able to join us, Laverne. We have some other really
Yeah.
fantastic guests on this show as well, and you are such an icon. You are such a trailblazer. You're such a wonderfully hearted human being. And I'm really grateful not only for your friendship, but then your guidance and sort of leadership that you demonstrate for the community. And, you know, the tipping point has not tipped back. We are still in that wonderful wave. And like you said, it's just been a pushback. And so the people that are listening to this, you know, if you know somebody who's trans or non-binary or queer and Black, maybe even not, whatever, please share this podcast. Make sure that they are following, obviously, Laverne, and listen to her podcast as well. But specifically for some of the wonderful things that Laverne said in this episode, please share this podcast, clips of this podcast. If there's somebody who might be having trouble coping right now, because I know that a lot of people are still coming into the reality and sort of dealing with the reality of what we're dealing with. And just like Laverne said, we will survive all of this. There will be a lot of challenges and a lot of things that are tough road ahead, but like we will get through.
Stay present.
Yeah.
Stay present. We shouldn't catastrophize. We should stay in the present moment and what is the next right action. Let me keep my nervous system regulated. Look around. I often talk about help now skills, grounding myself on the floor, just being in the present moment. It's because when it's hysterical, it's historical, right? So most of us as trans and queer people have dealt with a lot of trauma. So if we can and the body doesn't know, the nervous system doesn't know if a trauma happened 10 or 20 years ago. So getting present in the moment that we're in right now is crucial. And the last thing I want to say about the people who say that they're allies of trans folks and who want to be allies, like supporting us financially is really important. I mean, meaning not like just giving us, some people need money. Some people have GoFundMes, hiring us, continuing to tell trans stories in Hollywood, getting humane stories out, getting trans voices lifted up, queer voices lifted up instead of people talking about us, have us talk about ourselves. If they're in the process of taking away rights, make sure, like, there's structural things that states are doing, Gavin Newsom is doing, and the Californian and governors are like saying, how can we Project 2025 proof our state? So on a structural level, these are some things people can do. And structures within corporations who say they're inclusive. If you work at a corporation and they're like, there was backlash and there was corporations who didn't want to do Pride. And when we lit the Empire State Building purple that was last year, for GLAAD, the guy at the corporation who sponsored it was like, I insisted, because there was pushback, because they right wing had done their Target Bud Light thing, and the corporations got scared. And this employee said, we will have our Pride celebration. We will not cower to domestic terrorists who want to make us scared. And that is a crucial part in this moment, right? That people who say they're allies, that they really step up and they aren't afraid, because they want to make people scared to support us. They want to make them afraid and frightened, and they have been afraid and frightened. And so this is the time to have courage. And we have to put our life mask on ourselves first, right? We have to make sure that we're okay before we can be of service. But once we do that, then how can we be there for our fellow human beings? And this isn't just for queer and trans people, for me. This is about people with the capacity for pregnancy. This is about people who are immigrants. We have to be all hands on deck in terms of community and being there for each other right now, in ways that hopefully will bring us closer, and seeing the humanity in each other, and loving on each other. And making it really safe, right? And so we have to do We have to do our own work, though. I think a lot of the reason why we're in this space in this country is that we haven't done our work, our mental health work. We are scared and we're looking for someone to blame. We go into fight, flight, or freeze, so we want to blame an immigrant or a trans person instead of what's my part in it. Systemic critique is useful, but like, what is there's people are struggling and haven't done any mental health work, and that's not encouraged, right? Like, and it's not, and schools are being defunded. So everyone within the sound of my voice has work to do to build resilience around shame and trauma and scarcity. Shame, trauma, and scarcity, and there's another one: fear, scarcity, shame, and trauma are like. The scarcity piece is huge right now. So do our mental health work. We have to do our mental health work so that we can show up as our most authentic, fullest, most actualized, wholehearted selves. And when we can begin to do that work, it'll travel within our communities, and we can be there for each other. We have to do our work, though, if we really want to be able to be there for
Do
each
you
other.
have any books or resources? I know you mentioned Bell Hooks to help to begin that work that you can recommend.
Oh, well, I mean, bell hooks, for our structural critiques. I'm a bell hooks. I'm a bell hooks girl. Black Looks was the first bell hooks book I read, and it's still really relevant. Yearning, but what I usually recommend for men, and my friend Matt McGorry, is oh my God, Matt has really evolved. But Matt, before he got really political, he was like, I'm looking to become a better ally, la la la. And he was like, what should I read? And I said, The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. And it's a book she wrote specifically for men about interrogating the ways in which they've internalized patriarchy. And it is a really great book as a starting point for men. The Will to Change, Bell Hooks. But in terms of dealing with like shame and trauma, Brene Brown's work. Daring Greatly, The Gifts of Imperfection are iconic, but there's an audiobook on Audible called The Power of Vulnerability, and it's actually only available as an audiobook. And it's a seminar. It's like a 3-day long seminar that she did, and they recorded it. And it goes deep into the vulnerability work that she's done, vulnerability research, shame research, the other self-conscious affectations, what empathy really looks like. She goes in a granular way. She talks in depth about scarcity, and that audiobook changed my life and really made me realize how much shame I'd internalized. And Brene's work is everything around shame. And shame, she defines as the intensely painful belief we have about ourselves that we're unworthy of connection and belonging. And this is for trans and queer people. Shame is a biggie. And she to clarify, she says guilt is I'm sorry I made a mistake, and shame is I'm sorry I am a mistake. And this is what a transphobic society will tell trans people, that we are a mistake, that we're unworthy of connection and belonging. And I am here to tell you that you are worthy, that worthiness is a birthright, and that when you start doing the work of unpacking your shame story, telling that shame story to someone who's had the right to who has the right to hear that story, shame dissipates 85% when we share our shame story with someone who has the right to hear it and are met with empathy. Empathy is the antidote to shame. The most powerful thing we can say to someone who is struggling with shame is me too. I have been there as well. And that healing work makes us feel, because when we're in shame, we feel like we're alone, like we're the only one. And the me too, the I hear you, we can do this together. The empathy is I'm not alone. And our biggest thing with shame is like, if this person knows this about me, I'm going to be unworthy of love. I'm ashamed because of where I come from, my transness, and they're going to think that I'm not worthy of whatever it is. And the ironic thing about shame and vulnerability is that vulnerability is the first thing we look for in someone else, and the last thing they want. We want people to see in ourselves. So to heal and build shame resilience, we have to get vulnerable and tell our shame story, but not to just anybody, to someone who can meet us with empathy. And the trauma piece, for trauma, I would recommend the app iChill. You can get it at your app store, and it goes through the tools of the community resiliency model. The Trauma Research Institute developed this wonderful modality that I've referenced here on this podcast, where there's 7 skills that anybody can use and teach to regulate your nervous system, right? Because trauma and shame function in the body in similar ways, but they're different. Shame, I would say, is story attached, is attached to the stories we tell ourselves, and trauma literally exists in our nervous system. And we can't always put words to it, but we feel it in our bodies. So getting really specific about where we're feeling anxiety in our bodies when it's happening, and then finding ways to self-regulate becomes crucially important. And then with a great therapist, reprocessing that trauma. But start with the iChill app. There's also a couple episodes of Laverne Cox Show. If you just look up the Laverne Cox Show and Jennifer Burden Flyer, I interviewed my therapist in 2 different episodes where we go in depth in the work of the community resiliency model and building trauma resilience. I think that work, trauma work and shame work, have been crucial for me. And then also getting clear. I think there's a 12-step piece too. Getting clear about people, places, and things in our lives that are not serving us. There are people, places, and things in our lives that are not serving us that might lead us to shame, might trigger us. So like when we're with someone and we feel agitated around them or we don't feel safe, learn to listen to what's going on in our bodies. The somatic work of trauma resilience is really about learning to listen to your body. Our bodies are always talking to us. When you develop skills from the community resiliency model, tracking is a big one, tracking what's going on with our bodies. And our bodies are telling us, like, since I've been doing this work, when I'm around somebody unsafe, like my body's like, you got to get out of here. Like I'm able to listen to that. And what is crucially important for trauma, people who've experienced trauma, right? If you experience, and there's different scales of trauma, right? If you've experienced sex abuse as a child, if you were bullied as a child, if you experience there's all kinds of different traumas that people go through. Just excessive stress or adversity can make you hypervigilant and be a symptom of trauma. And what trauma survivors do is we take an alarm bell and turn it into a dinner bell, and a dinner bell into an alarm bell. And so then with trauma, we start going, like I thought abuse was love. I thought because my mother spoke to me all kinds of ways and she told me she loved me, that like I needed to find a man who talked to me like I was a dog and like I was nothing, and that was love to me. And I had to learn that that was not love, that was an alarm bell. And so in reprocessing my nervous system, learning to change, now with the work that I've done with the community resiliency model and all the other work I've done with shame, when that person who was talking to me crazy is talking to me crazy, I'm like, no, this is not love. This is the alarm bell, and this is my body, my nervous system saying, flee this person, get the F out. And when trauma survivors, when someone is tender, when I would meet a man or meet someone who was lovely and kind and sweet to me, I was like, what is this? What is this? Because I didn't know how to receive. I didn't know how to receive the love and the kindness because that was foreign to me. So I pushed that away. But in reprocessing my trauma, I'm like, oh. And that's about being able to tolerate vulnerability, being able to tolerate uncomfortability, right? Because it's uncomfortable when someone sees you, knows every deep, dark secret about you, and accepts you anyway. The first time that happened to me, I was like, this is freaking me out. What the fuck is this? This is a healthy relationship. This is two people present in a moment, being vulnerable and accepting the imperfections of each other. And so that's a process. That's work, that to be able to I tolerate the vulnerability, the intimacy, and that dinner bell of this, and allow myself to receive. Like when you're a trauma survivor and when you are deep in shame, you don't actually think, I didn't think I was worthy of being treated like I was somebody. in a friendship or a romantic relationship. I didn't think I was worthy of that. Now, with all the work that I've done, I know that worthiness is a birthright. I know that there are no prerequisites to worthiness. That like when I get skinny enough, I'll be worthy, or when I make enough money, I'll be worthy, or when I'm passable enough, I'll be worthy, or whatever the stories we tell ourselves. I was born worthy. We all were. And that is the work to get like all of the sort of childhood traumas, the attachment stuff, that getting rid of the shame, the attachment, all the fucked up things that happen to us as children. That is the work. And so I would Crim, the Laverne Cox podcast with Jennifer Burden Flyer for trauma, Brene Brown, Power of Vulnerability for shame, and Easy does it. Like it's take it easy. Whatever speaks to you first. If you feel like you need to deal with the trauma, go there. If you feel like you need to deal with the shame, go there. And if you are, and you can't get to that if you're in an active addiction. You can't get, and the addiction is the symptom. If you're struggling with drug addiction, alcoholism, sex addiction, shopping addiction, look, you can't really get to the work of being vulnerable because you're numbing. Addiction is just chronic numbing, and we are a culture that chronically numbs. With my phone, I'm addicted to my phone. We can't, because when we can't selectively numb. This is all Brene Brown. We can't selectively numb. When we numb the horrible things that we don't want to feel, we also numb the joy. We numb. So we're talking about trans joy, right? We can't be numb to experience the joy. We can't, and we don't selectively numb. And last thing I'll say, girl, this is a monologue. But one of my favorite things that Brene Brown says about joy is that the only way we can really experience joy, and it's the most difficult emotion to feel, because when we allow ourselves to feel joy, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? We are programmed to look for that threat in our nervous systems. So when we are in this joyous moment and we're like, this is too good to be true, oh my God, and then we have that waiting for the other shoe moment to drop, gratitude. Gratitude, an active gratitude practice allows us to be able to really experience joy. So even when I was broke and I had the eviction notice and I was on a payment plan for my rent, I was getting up every day and making a gratitude list. I'm so grateful that they didn't successfully evict me. I'm so grateful I got a roof over my head, Lord. I'm so grateful that I'm working on myself and I'm better today than I was yesterday. I'm so grateful that I have people in my life that I love. Writing it down and then sensing into your nervous system. So you don't just write the gratitude down, that you sense into your body the things that I'm grateful for. And then with an active gratitude practice, then we can experience that joy without waiting for the other shoe to drop. We can revel in all the joyous things around us. And there's a lot there. Like the numbing, the addiction, we can't experience the joy. The shame, the trauma, can't experience the joy. Okay. That's a lot. Take what you want, leave the rest.
Well, you've given us some joy. You've given us some absolute joy, and I mean, girl, I'm here for it. There's been so many opportunities for people, like we talked about earlier, being able to hear queer and trans, hear about who they think queer and trans people are, and never really including us in their conversations. Even some of the political spaces that are being watched so heavily right now are talking so much about us. The political ads, the things. There's so much visibility about the queer and trans community that even in that debate, that he said, "Oh, trans this, trans that," and she had to say, "I don't think Kamala even mentioned the word trans during this entire thing." We are being talked about so much, and so if we have to take a few extra minutes to hear someone from our community speaking on their own terms and own platform, on their own behalf about who they are, about how they feel, and what they want to do, and the joy that they experience, and so be it. And so, thank you so much for that. We've had you and a lot of our other fabulous guests. And so I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and turn off the TV, turn off the don't listen to that stuff, because listen to your siblings, your trans siblings. We are could be in the humanity, the joy.
Well, they're going to listen to the rest of this podcast.
What are you grateful for? What are you grateful for, Bob and Pep, as we close out?
I mean, I'm so
Like I'm
great.
the
I have so
host.
much to be grateful for. I have some of the most amazing
Hmm.
friends. You know, the fact that I think about, and a lot of my friends, a lot of us were like starting in the same place in these New York City bars, these New York City comedy clubs, in these New York City restaurants, and just on our own independent paths are doing Broadway, winning Emmys, touring with Madonna, selling
Yeah.
out Radio City Music
Yeah.
Hall. And these are all just artists who I was just going around having fun with or just admiring in my days of New York City as a
Yeah.
young queer.
Yeah.
You know, I have I'm very grateful for my health. I'm very grateful for mostly honestly the people in my life. Like I really have an amazing group of friends, and I feel really lucky
Mm.
to be able to say that out loud. How about you, Pep?
Amen.
You know, I mean, I listen to this. I'm grateful for you, Laverne. I'm grateful for you, Bob. Both of you have represent such important moments in my life, and moments that are the opposite of what I thought I would be experiencing. You know, like even 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more. I wasn't on this. I didn't think I'd be on this trajectory. Yes, I lived in New York City. Yes, I was doing all the things, but there was so much about the world that told me, and even specifically out of their mouth told me that I wouldn't be able to do any of the things that I've done. And so I'm so grateful and thankful for that. I'm thankful for being able to make my own decisions about not only about my body, but then also about what I want to do with my life. And there were so many moments where I have had an eviction notice, and I'm alive and I made it through. And obviously I'm grateful for that. But I'm also grateful for the feeling, for the knowledge that I know that even if I get another eviction notice, I'll still be okay. And that's really
Hmm.
warming for me. And I'm grateful for the amount of time that we got to spend together. This has been wonderful. I have to wrap because we are definitely over time, but I'm grateful for our audience. The real wrap is going to be on the end of this. We've already recorded it. On the other end of this.
Hmm.
So I guess we did it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorraine. That was so great. That was really amazing.
Thank you.
Wow.
Why do I keep calling you
You
Monet?
always call me Monet, and I don't love it. I don't know why that.
It's because I love you both, and you're both my sisters, and I feel fondly for both. You know when a mom calls you by all of your siblings' names and your cousins' names and the dog's name? My mom goes like, my real name is Chris. And my mom goes like, well, when she was alive, my mom would be like, she'd be like, Justin, Scotty, Junior, Grizzly, Chris. It would take her so many names just to get to Chris, but I realized
But
it was all people that she loves.
Okay. I mean, it would be weird if it was like people that she never met. But do you ever call Monet Peppermint?
I'm sure. Yes. I'd be like, Mo. Yes. But I
See,
never
I'm a
call
half-fed
you.
bitch.
But I would never call you or Monet like Widow Von Du, because me and Widow Von Du aren't close like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I also
I'm a
have this
fine.
friend. You know my friends Nick and Mitch, and I always call them each other's names. I do not know why. I'm always like Nick to Mitch, and I'm always like Mitch to Nick. I do not know why I do that. It's always two
Bitch.
people
Does
that I
Bob
switch
ever
up.
call you Peppermint? Question mark.
You can ask her.
I'm gonna ask her right now. I'm gonna see what Monet says.
Well,
Okay.
sometimes I call her slow mo, which she doesn't like.
Ooh. Oh, that's rude.
I know. That's why I say it. It's not an accident. It's not accidentally rude. I did it on purpose, and I'll bully her till the end of time, darling.
Okay.
That's my
Talk
right.
about this, because this is current events. We acknowledged, for those who don't know, I'm a tri-state area, Delmarva area girl, which is like basically all the
Delmarva,
little
what is
small
that?
Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. It's all the small states on the
Got
East
it.
Coast are like you can travel between them. So they all have a relationship. There's a lot of people that commute between these different areas because they're all the small little East Coast states that are all like small. And so I'm from PA, but I'm also from Delaware, the state that Joe Biden is from, but also, well, he's from Pennsylvania. Anyway, but also now the historic the historic moment that we celebrated with Sarah McBride, the very first ever trans congresswoman. She's the House representative for Delaware. And that's historic. But I don't know if you saw the two, Nancy Mace and Marjorie Taylor Greene are like passing Senate resolutions, House resolution, I think. Yeah, obviously a House resolution to limit where she can go to the bathroom, Sarah McBride,
Yes.
and saying that. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
That's not trans joy and it's not black queer, but it's trans relevant, I guess.
It is trans news.
In
That
other
is true.
trans news, shady.
In other trans news. But on that note, I want to say that these two episodes have been really remarkable. And if you missed part one, please go back and listen to Trans Joy Part 1. It is available on our YouTube page. Go to Town Hall, a Black Queer podcast. I think that the YouTube is actually just called Town Hall. If you type in Town Hall Podcast, Bob and Peppermint, you will see it. It'll pop right up there for you. And of course, we have some remarkable people that we need to thank because we do not do these episodes by
Yes.
ourselves. A big special thanks to our. Go ahead, Pep.
Ow! Special thanks to our producing team, our award-winning producing team. I don't know, I give them an award. They get my award, the Gold Star Award. Executive producer, Tracy Marquez. Executive producer, Charlene Westbrook. Producer, Corey Nixon. Post-producer, Amelia Ritaler. And music by the fabulously trans La Femme Bear.
All right, y'all have a great time. We'll see you next week.